This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Everybody, welcome all our Torah Anytime viewers. So tonight we're going to go on. Let's first back it up a little bit. The reason why we're speaking about these type of topics, and in fact, generally you don't have many people, many rabbis, teaching about these type of topics. So one of the reasons that I decided to do it, and again, you have to be very wary on this type of situation because you're dealing with a lot of avodah zarah. These things are idol worship. You're not supposed to be learning about idol worship. You're not supposed to be teaching about idol worship. These are things that you should be refraining from doing. So we have to delve into it, very carefully. And this is also why, based off the halakha from the Rambam, Maimonides in Hilchot Avodah Zarah, a person is not allowed to even mention a name of an idol. You're not allowed to even mention the name of it. Which people, for some reason, it's a very not known. When people speak about Hinduism, they start mentioning all the gods. You're not allowed to even mention those gods' names. So that's going to make it a little bit difficult because we're going to be speaking about them, but we can't mention their gods' names. So going back to the reason why I decided to speak about this is when speaking about people that, trying to, they don't really believe in God, they have questions about God, they have questions about Judaism. One of the very, very common questions that I personally get, well, how do you know we have the right one? How do you know there's so many religions out there? We spoke about last week, we said it was 4,200 religions, and each religion has denominations upon denominations upon denominations. So how do we know that we're in the right one? Maybe, let's look at numbers. Christianity is very popular. Maybe that's what's the right one. Maybe Islam, maybe, we'll speak today about Hinduism. It's a very large population that follows, Hinduism. So how do we know that we're the right one? And in fact, I had a guy once who, I don't know, maybe this is a year and a half ago. He used to call me, and he would call me every week, question on a different religion. I'm like, dude, you're wasting my time over here. You're sweating over here, starting to learn about other religions to try to prove it wrong. And I had to go through a lot of religions. He's like, okay, what about this religion? I'm like, I have never even heard about it. It was like 6 people follow it. I'm like, where do you even get this? So this, unfortunately, it's a very, very common question that I get it. And when you're dealing with this, as you go through all these different religions, you could call them religions or cults, you see how obvious it is that the Judaism is it sticks out so obvious. We spoke about last week, why doesn't God just make it very obvious? And the answer is He does. If you just open your eyes and you just look a little bit, there's one thing that sticks out way, way above anything else, regardless of the numbers, regardless of the proofs that they can give you. So, doing a quick recap on how we discussed how we're going to prove if a religion is false or if a religion is true. So we gave 5 criteria, and this is it's sort of a foundation of where you could build. It doesn't have to in order for a religion to be true, if you already knock off one of these, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's false, but it's very, very unlikely that it's true. So number 1, we spoke about we wanted to see a God-given religion. We have no interest for a man-made religion. We spoke about that you need to if God created the world, which we gave proofs upon this, that God has obviously created the world, we gave proofs also that God is actively running the world, then there must be a purpose for the world. And that's where religion comes in. Religion is come to tell you what is the purpose. And every religion has a different purpose. And say this religion is going to say the purpose is to get out of karma, whatever it is. This religion says the purpose is just to believe in somebody. Every religion has its purpose in life, and depending on the religion is which way you're going to live your life. So, the consequences are obviously enormous if you pick the wrong religion, because that's eternity that you're dealing with. So number 1 is we're only interested in a God-given religion. We're not interested in a man-made religion. If someone comes up to you and says, listen, this is a way of life, you hit the buzzer, not interested, next. Because that doesn't give you anything. Number 2 is that even if it was a God-given religion, is it very easily made up? An example is that, a guy goes and says, I was in the forest and a bird came over to me and then it started speaking to me and I heard and I understood the bird. And the bird said, I am now God, or I'm the Messiah, and this is the new thing. Everybody's going to have to follow birdology. And, I start a new cult, whatever it is, and everyone's got to go and whistle like birds. And that's a cult. Now, nobody saw me talking to this bird. Nobody saw me, and I could elaborate, and I got wings, and I started flying like a bird, and then I took it all. We could go on and on about it, but how can you prove it? One guy, one dude saying what happened. So that's not really strong. That's very easily refutable. You could just very easily say, not true. How do I know? How can you prove it? So even if you tell me that it's a God-given religion, how do I know that it's true? Number 3 is that even if that it was given by God, how do I know that it's active? How do I know that it's active? Maybe God changed his mind. Maybe it was up to a certain time. How do I know that it's active till today? Number 4 we spoke about something called selective evidence. This is based off Rabbi David Gottlieb, that if somebody is going to give you evidence for something, if there's two ways to see it, then you want to pick the more probable, the more logical, the more likely, if we may, answer. So, for example, Christians say, well, you want to know proof of Christianity? There's so many people that follow Christianity. That's an obvious proof. Why would God allow 2.1 billion people to follow the wrong religion? That's the proof for it. But a very obvious and easy rebuttal to that would be, well, for thousands of years, billions of people, millions of people were serving idols. Does that mean that the idols was correct? People follow very, very, I guess, wrong paths all the time. It doesn't mean that it's true just because you have a population. And as we go through the religions, we'll see how it's so easy to refute them. It's like it's almost like a joke. It's almost like a joke. I'm like, you're serious? The question then arises, then how come nobody, thinks about that religion and says, what's going on? Why are we following this fake religion? And, unfortunately, the answer is that most people don't think. In life, unfortunately, people don't think. They just live. They just live through the life. You ever do that? You ever get at the end of the day and you'd be like, let's say you didn't go to work and you're a day off and you're like, what did I accomplish today? Like, I did nothing. Like, I did nothing the whole day. And people do that their entire life. They just do nothing their entire life. They don't stop for a second and think, why am I here? Am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? Am I following the path that I'm supposed to be following? So let us begin with Hinduism. So Hinduism, it's the third largest religion. It has roughly about 1.1 billion people. And obviously it's very concentrated in India. This religion is, it's very, very interesting to me when I was learning on this, is that it's so polytheistic. It's so like ancient style. It's like so deep in paganism that I don't even understand like how can people believe it. I mean, you'll soon see what I'm talking about. There are unfortunately many Israelis that after they finish their term in the army, they go to India. So some of them, and usually what they do is, we spoke about this a little bit last week, they usually go to see, to party, but some of them actually go there to seek spirituality. If they just know a little bit about what they have, what this religion has to offer, which is nothing more than that Judaism cannot offer, they wouldn't even think twice about going there. The problem is that people don't know the true beauty of Judaism. So one of the first things that I do when I look at a religion, I want to know how it started. Tell me how it started. What's the starting story? I need to know. Was there a divine connection somewhere going along? I don't care if it's like one person who dreamt about God and God told him that. But is there a connection to the divine? Hinduism, fortunately or unfortunately, leads us to problem number one with it. There's no founder to it. There's no founding. There's no somebody who decided to start the religion and claim anything. It just sort of came into being, which it's like a big red flag. If there's no founder to a religion, and now we don't need a founder to a religion, but we want to know is, how do you know this is right? So you're coming to sell me a religion, prove it to me. Prove it to me that this is, how do I know that it's divine? If you have no founder, no story, that is a very big red flag. So what are you selling? The way that it actually started, and by the way, this is one of the most ancient religions that historians claim survived through the times. I disagree with that like 100% because the religion that Hinduism practices now is for sure 100% not what they practiced 4,000 years ago or 3,500 years ago, how they claim. And the reason is very simple. You go learn through this history. The religion started, let's say, 4,000 years ago. Now, 4,000 years ago, the way that they describe it at itself is there were Aryan cattle herders from like Asia that came into India, and India had its own belief system. Aryans also had their own belief system, and what they did was they merged it together. That's always flag number two. When you're starting to combine and doing a cholent mix of different religion, like what's going on over here? If I am confident that this is my religion, I don't need to double up with you. If somebody is very confident in what they're doing, they don't need to partner up with somebody else. I'm like, I'm cool, I got it, I'm very confident in this. I don't need to try your thing just in case. Type of situation. So this is also a red flag. They started combining it. And in fact, this is how the religion started growing. I think of it as this example. You have a snowball on top of a mountain. And as the snowball starts rolling down, it gets bigger and bigger, collecting more and more snow. That's how Hinduism became what it was today. They kept on absorbing more and more different religions, and they just sort of like, you got a God? We got a God. How many you got? You got 100? We got like 50,000. All right, come on, let's join. And they got it together. You know how many gods they have? They have millions of gods. You got to be like, do they have like encyclopedia of like, okay, what God do I need today? Money, 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 money. They have millions upon millions of gods. Another very big red flag is Hinduism has a very, very strong belief on reincarnation. And in fact, the central goal of Hinduism is to release from the cycle of reincarnation. And we'll speak about it soon. The idea is that they believe that people die and people come back, which Judaism, of course, also believes in reincarnation. But they say the goal is that to stop that cycle. Like you die, you come back. You die, you come back. The goal is to get out of that cycle and not to come back anymore. It's not that once you die, and you go into wherever they describe the next world is. So this. When you're looking at a religion, you also want to see its text. What is its text? I want to know, give me some for the oldest text that we have is something called the Rig Veda, which came about 1500 BCE, which means is that we were talking about here 3,500 years ago. Between 3,000 to 3,500 years ago is where you're dealing with it, which means is you have around 500 to 1,000 years, there's no text. There is no thing. Everything was orally. Orally is fine as long as you supplemented with some sort of written text, which this is very obvious why they don't have a founder, because they don't have anything that was going on for the past 1,000 years, and they don't have it as proof. Just basically, people that were doing certain rituals and certain, sacrifices and certain, avodot that they do to their idols. So this leads us to another problem, which means is that even if you want to tell me that this was a correct religion back when, it's still for sure not now, because as it transitioned over time, we don't know what originally was. And how do we not know what originally was? Because you don't even have a text to tell us. So even if it was somehow correct, it's for sure 100% incorrect now. And not that it was correct ever. It's very easy also to disprove that as well. So another red flag on this is that there's no central authority. And in fact, in Hinduism, you could just sort of worship whoever you want. It's not like Tuesday we do Tuesday gods, Wednesday we do Wednesday gods. There's none of that. You do whatever you want, when you want it, and how you feel like you want it. They do hold and this is where they could people confuse people and be like, no, what do you mean? We're a monotheistic religion. And well, they technically they don't actually claim monotheism, but what they do is they claim that there's one supreme God. We can't say this God's name, and then there's a destroyer. They have a trinity. By the way, Christianity wasn't the first people that came out with the trinity. They took out so much. Christianity literally was like going through religion and be like, I'll take that. It's like going through a buffet. I'll take that, I'll take that, I'll take that, I'll take that, and let's put it all together. New religion. And in fact, what's something very interesting when you study religions? Many of their ideas are all borrowed from other things. Hinduism, for example, the whole India region of religions are very, very strongly rooted in the same concept of reincarnation and getting out of that cycle. They just put a facade of a little bit of a different spin. Like this one believes in this one believes in this, but deep down it's all the same core, just getting to it a little bit differently. Obviously, I oversimplified it, but so what they believe is that they have this one supreme God. They have like these two, right-hand gods, and then millions and billions, not billions, millions of gods underneath them. The obvious question is that if there's one God, why would the other one God, the supreme being, the creator of everything, want you to serve a bunch of other gods? That doesn't make any logical sense. Skip on some of those. Rabbi Victor Miller explains why do people do idol worship? What was the whole idea behind idol worship? So one of the worships that they do, one of the idols that they serve over here is what they do is it's very, very an immoral act. Basically, a woman marries an idol. And she becomes married to the idol. She's not allowed to marry anybody else, and she is connected to that idol. There's rituals that they do that is completely immoral. It's literally the idol, the woman, and a priest playing the musical instrument. And the woman does her ritual, which is part of some immoral acts that she has to do in front of this idol. And then Mazal Tov, they're married. And and then you have other idols that they came out through adultery. One idol committed adultery with another idol, and they had another baby idol adultery. Gods. And this is what you're dealing with. Says Rabbi Victor Miller. He says, what is the whole idea behind these idolatries? It's very simple. People want to do something. They want to do a certain sin. They want to do something, but they have a conscience. I'm like, this doesn't seem right. This is not right. So what happens if I build it into a religion, or this idol does it, and all of a sudden it becomes okay? Not only becomes okay, it becomes like a mitzvah. It becomes a good deed to do that. So they build all these, and that's why a lot of these idols you see in all these ancient religions, they have a lot of immorality in them. And they have different ideas of worship that are also very immoral, because this is what the people wanted to do. They felt bad, they wanted to get a conscience, so they got around it by convincing something else. Nowadays and age, it's not that different. People at all, a point in time, they go and they convince themselves what they're doing is not really wrong. No, really, I mean, how many times, I'm so sick of getting this already, like, I have a boyfriend or I have a girlfriend, but they help me keep Shabbos now. I don't do this all because of right now. I'm like, somebody told me that when he has heroin, he doesn't do cocaine. So like, that's obviously a good thing. I'm like, no, just because you do one thing bad, one thing good that comes out of it doesn't make that whole idea good. It's rationalization. And people rationalize the whole time. Okay, if it's really hot and, God is not in Miami, so I don't have to be modest in Miami. It's a different zip code. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't, people get completely, their own ideas, their own rationalization. We look back at them, those idols, and be like, well, they're such fools. Like, how could they even believe that? But we do the same thing. We do the same thing in the same manner, and we rationalize and we say, no, it's okay. This is why it's a very, very important fact to remember. When you're serving God, you have to serve God on His terms, not on your terms. I speak to secular people all the time, and I say, I'm going to be a good person. I'm going to be a great person. I'm going to follow, certain things, but I'm not interested in Shabbos. I'm not interested in kosher. Why do I need to do these things? And the answer is, if you want to serve God, there's only one way to do it. Not on your terms, but rather on His terms. So if you're dealing with your own terms, you completely, misconstrue the entire ideology, the entire religion, and you make your own religion out of that. Okay, so it also comes into a little bit of an halachic interesting issue, is that let's say you go and you purchase a house from a Hindu, somebody who has so there are Indians and Hindus that live over here, and in their actual houses they have little shrines, little temples, little I forgot the word that they use for it, and so they're serving avodah zarah in their house. And let's say you go and you buy that house, so you have to be very careful to make sure you get rid of all those stuff. And I tell this to people in the real estate business, that if you're selling a house to somebody and it's a Jew and you're selling it, this person was a Hindu or something else, make sure they have to do a good chanukat habayit. You have to make sure to get all the impurities, all those bad energies, if we may, out of that house. So, what do Hindus claim that the purpose of life is? That is a very, very important facet. When you're looking into religions, you have to see what is their purpose of life. It also tells you what is their essence and what is their goal. So the purpose of life is, like we said before, is that there is a certain thing called karma, and which is depending on what you do, if it's good or if it's bad. And depending on that, you'll have is how your next life cycle is going to be. You are good, so you're going to have a better life cycle. And what happens is as you go through the reincarnation cycle, eventually, if you do and you follow their religion, you'll get out of that, and that's you'll achieve heaven, eternal bliss, so on and so forth. They call this moksha. Moksha is removing yourself from this, from this cycle of what they call as samsara, which is a cycle of birth and death. So, and what's very interesting, why I'm telling you also these words, is that when you go through other Indian religions, they all have the same idea. I'm like, wow, that's pretty, like every religion says, that one is wrong, but yet you have the same ideas from the wrong religion, which is also a red flag. And in fact, many religions, you don't even have to look outside the religion to prove it false. You can prove it false from within. For example, if there's mistakes in the book that is considered divine or godly, and they have no answers to it, believe, have faith, be a good person, that is also a red flag. There is, yoga, meditation, all these things are very, very strong in that region. In fact, yoga originated from, talking about the 6th century BCE is where yoga originated over there. Before we even get to the yoga, people, I don't know if anybody here ever dealt with meditation, but I'm sure if you think about it, if I say the word, you'll probably understand it. You ever realize when people meditate, they use a thing called just makes me want to slap somebody. It's like so annoying. So this is actually very, very sacred in Hindu texts. And before they have the Rig Veda, before they do their mantras and their certain meditations and certain things that they do, they have an before and an after. So if you go, and it's rooted in Avodah Zarah, the idea, it's like a cosmic sound and what they think, and in fact this is the most famous meditative cycle that they use. In the beginning and the ending reading of any of the Vedas, they go and they say the beginning and the beginning at the end. So when somebody goes and somebody wants to meditate, which you're allowed to meditate, there's kosher meditation, we spoke about it last week, you could go to Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, has 3 books on meditation, also one is very easy, it's a little pamphlet, it's like practical guide to meditation, but one thing that you should not use as a mantra is something that you say again and again and again and again while you're meditating, is this This is rooted in Avodah Zarah, and you should not be using it. Let's move on to yoga. Yoga is originally, so we said it originated in India, and in fact they claim that it was a certain god created this yoga and brought it, and this is their worship. Their worship is to do yoga positions for their god. So this results in a very, very big question. Can we do yoga now? How can we do yoga now? We can't do something that's Avodah Zarah, that's based off idolatry. So in essence, there's 2 types of yoga in Hinduism. One of them is called the Hatha yoga, which is the physical positions that people get into, balancing on one dog. I don't know what I've never done yoga, but anyway, so you do all these weird things. And then there's something called the Raja yoga. The Raja yoga is not really the physical, but it's more controlling the mind for the meditation. And based on these things, they say mantras while they're doing the yoga. So, which means is they could say their God's names again and again, or they say, or they do this position for this God, and so on and so forth. So this form of yoga is 100% forbidden. You're not allowed to do that. First of all, you're not allowed to mention God's names. Secondly, you're doing a sort of idol worship, even though the idol is not there, but this is what it's sourced in. So then you have a question, but so many people today do yoga. So is it allowed to? So there are leniencies that you could go, but it has to be, based on certain things. Number one, there cannot be any mention of any Avodah Zarah, associated to it. Which means is you basically take everything out that it was associated with Avodah Zarah, and you're doing it just as an exercise. But that also has to come into the same thing, that there's no rituals involved. People sometimes do these things, and you have to bow in certain places, and you have to do certain things, and then you stretch in a certain way, and you say a certain thing, and these things are all rooted in Avodah Zarah. So the only way that you could have a leniency to go and do this is, number one, if you have a kosher instructor, right? So you're not going to, places that do yoga centers, I have no idea. And you're not going over there and you're just signing up to a class. You're doing something by a kosher instructor that they should know what they're doing and taking away anything of that. Number two, there's no rituals, there's no names, and there's nothing that is even remotely associated with Avodah Zarah, just for the exercise that you could be lenient to do. Okay, so let's speak a little bit about the Red Dot. You know the Red Dot? They say about the joke about the Red Dot. I was told not to say this joke. Maybe I shouldn't say it. So you'll probably see why I shouldn't be saying this joke. Not to offend any of the Indians, but in essence, it is based on. First of all, what's the source of it? The source of it is they used to offer blood sacrifice to appease the gods. So they used to put the red dot over there. It's really what it's originally what it's meant to be was for the married woman. When they get married, they have they put the red dot. Now it became more of a like a cool, looking type of, what am I talking about? Fashion, thank you. More like a fashion statement. But
do they know the root of the Red Dot?
Most people, when they do stuff, they don't know the root of anything. You go to speak to Christians and you say, why do you knock on wood? They don't know. That's because JC died on wood. There's no, people do so many things, they have no clue what they do it for. So I would venture to say no. They probably do not know what it is, but maybe some of them. I'm sure some of them do. Anyways, the joke goes that why do they have the woman wear on the wedding night? And they say so that when the husband, after the wedding, the husband could scratch off and see what he won. Either he's going to win a motel, a gas station, or a 7-Eleven, whatever. So depending on what the situation is, But obviously, you can see why I was told not to say that type of joke, and this is why I have a problem called filtering. I don't have it. So but no offense to anybody. It's just obviously they're very good people. Even though they're not putting aside the idol worship, but you're dealing with them. They're very nice people. To deal with. The cow. Let's speak a little bit about the cow. When you think about Hinduism, right away, the first thing is the cow. Do you worship the cow? You ask him, do you worship cow? No. Only we honor the cow. Well, I beg to differ, because you could call it what you want. Let's see what it actually is. So generally, many Hindus don't eat meat. And specifically, they don't eat beef. And cows are considered very, very sacred animals. And in fact, that anybody who is not respecting cows could literally be prosecuted in India. I have a friend that, which I spoke about last week from, Akshay from India. He was telling me these things. That people could actually be prosecuted for not respecting the cow. So I'm like, all right, worshiping the cow kind of sounds like it is. And let's see how we continue. they do very, very disturbing things with what comes out of cows. So the milk, that's cool. Keep on drinking it. Good for your teeth. But what happens is that they use the cow feces to put a certain ritual mark on their head as part of their rituals, and they also I don't know how to say it, not in a way that you make want to throw up, but they kind of drink the cow urine. And when I say kind of, means some of them do that. And I've actually, seen someone send me a clip of them actually catching it midstream, l'chaim in it, and just downing it. And in fact, they're like, this is the healthiest thing. I'm like, take a health ed class. Like, please, learn something. That is not health. That is not at all. One guy actually claims that diabetes got away from him when he started drinking the cow urine. I said, you scared your diabetes away. That's what happened. I'm like, diabetes, like, is this cow urine? I was like, I'm out of here. Who wants to stick around with this guy? But they actually, and they're considering like bottling it and selling it. I'm like, it's something so disturbing. Now, I understand weird rituals, and fine, we can't understand them because we're not, Hindus. Okay. But when you're drinking stuff that are remnants of, feces and urine, this is where it goes, be like, all right, either like, cult alert, or, this is something going on over here that everybody is not in the right mindset. Now, not more than that, they actually have a cow holiday. Again, not worship. A cow holiday where the cows are washed, the cows are decorated, and then they're given offerings. Now, I don't know what you call worship, but I'm like, this all spells worship, cow worship, which is 100% of Avodah Zarah, and of course, very, very, big problem. Okay, so now let's do a quick recap and move on to the next religion. So the first thing that comes up is there's no origin to Hinduism. There's no origin to Hinduism. You kick it out the window. There's obviously, which comes to make you think, there's 1.1 billion people that follow this. How do they not stop for a second and think? How is it when they're like, cow urine? No, I had it yesterday. I'm good for like a week. How is it that they don't stop for a second and they think, and they don't stop for, and this is a very, very big problem. And I had this question asked me, like, why does God allow this? Why does God allow so many people to go and fall to different paths? And I said, who said God allows it? Who said that God doesn't give you little reminders? And in fact, this is something very interesting people don't think very often about. In every person's life, there comes a time where you stop for a second and you're like, what am I doing here? Like, what's the purpose of it all? Everybody has this. Everybody has this, like, one. The problem is, most people just like, don't talk. Conscience, put the conscience in the pocket, let's continue playing video games. And this thing comes again and again and again, like, hey, what's going on with your life? And people have these questions. Then people start saying, this is where midlife crisis comes in. Maybe I have to change a job. I have to get a red sports car. Whatever it is that people have. But these are really like instincts that are coming in from inside that God's sending, like, wake up, dude, you're in the wrong thing. But people just keep on doing. People live life. They don't stop for a second. They don't think. Number 2, we spoke about a very, very big red flag that this is very unlikely. It's a gradual religion. It came in out of, certain time, every other religion joined. It came in there. It's very flat out, very obviously fake and not real and not divine. And what's also very obvious is that if there would have been a divine revelation or something divine in this religion, it would have been written down. Because that's like one of the most important things in a religion is like, how do you prove it? Why do you think that, according to the Jewish religion, Har Sinai is, Shavuos is huge, with the accepting of the Torah. Why? Because this proves that we have something that other people don't. You realize there's not one religion out there that has, usually how does it start? If there is a divine revelation, 1, 2, handful of people at tops. Nowhere do you have a national divine revelation. Nowhere do you have, and the question is, if it was made up, as some people claim, like, made up, then how come no other religion ever made it up? Wouldn't it have been a really, really good, strong source of proof for Christianity, who said, well, like, JC, he came up on the mountain, and, 600 of us, 600,000 of us, we all heard him talking to God and giving the new Torah. None of that. Why not? And the answer is because you can't make that stuff up. People be like, well, we were there, we didn't hear this, stuff. There's no proof of this. But Judaism does claim it, which shows you something that is very, very different with Judaism. In fact, we can sum up with this. The Indian High Court ruling in 1995 said like this. They tried to understand the religion. So they claimed the religion is like this. The Hindu religion does not claim any one prophet, does not worship any one God, does not subscribe to any one dogma, does not believe in any one philosophic concept, does not have any one set of religious rites, and it goes on and it concludes, it may broadly be described as a way of life and nothing more. Well, guess what? We're not interested in a way of life. We're interested in a divine religion. So this one, you could just check out of the thing. But some more little fun tidbits of it, if I may. There's a temple called the Tirupati Temple in India, and this is where millions and millions of these people that are devoted to this temple. They come in once a year and they shave their head as worship. They shave their hair as worship to this Avodah Zarah. This temple became very, very wealthy. Very, very wealthy because they took the hair and they sell it now to make wigs. Now, obviously speaking, these types of wigs are forbidden to use because you cannot. If somebody goes and uses something for Avodah Zarah, you're not allowed to use it. You're not allowed to touch it. You're not allowed to deal with it. You're not allowed to sell it. You can't deal anything with something that's associated with Avodah Zarah. Also, furthermore, besides worshiping the cow, they worship other. I mean, it seems like they just worship anything. It'd be like, just start worshiping, like, so yeah, why not? Throw it in. They worship plant. There's a Tulsi plant in the river Ganga that they worship. They worship, besides other animals, besides the cow, they worship the monkey, the cobra snake. There is a temple called Karni Mata they worship rats. I kid you not, they worship rats. There's a temple, and there is about 15,000 rats just like running all over the place, and people are sitting over there. And by the way, you're not allowed to wear shoes in that temple. And I don't know how well you guys know rats, but they don't go to the bathroom on the side. They're just running and be like, just knock them out. So you're stepping on rat feces as you're walking past by here. You have these scary little things like, going around, and it climbs on people and it eats the food with people, and they're like, oh, it's blessing if the rat eats the food. I'm like, if you like rabies, it's blessing. Otherwise, it's not. And they go and rats carry diseases not just on their saliva or if they bite you, on their skin. They have diseases everywhere, and they're just like sitting over there. You see these? I've seen it. I've seen these things. It's ridiculous. The rats are climbing, and they're like, oh, it's like a. I'm like, this is not a parrot. You're throwing a rodent all over you. And they go and they live with the rodents, and they sit down to worship, and they have like rodents just like running all over the place. They claim that these rodents are their ancestors. This part I probably believe. They claim that it's their ancestors, and you have to honor the ancestors. It's part of the cycle. They go in this, and then they go into that. So out of all the stuff that's going on in the religion, this is the most likely that's probably true. Regarding everything else is all fake and false. But something very interesting? There is a group of people from India that claim to be from the tribe of Menashe, one of the long lost tribe. And I was actually speaking to somebody this week on it, and he was telling me about it. He says there's already 3,000 of them that already made an aliyah to Israel. They had traditions. They were keeping Shabbat, marriage purity. Obviously, they have to go through the conversion process again. But there's a certain organization called Sha'avei Yisrael that goes and helps people from different things. And they actually put it on their website. You see there, the tribe, they claim to be from the tribe of Menashe. And they came, you have these Indians that now are in Israel. 3,000 of them that are coming back to Judaism. Or first time to Judaism, but whatever it is. It's something very, very interesting. When we speak about Hinduism, I have to touch on Gandhi. People know who Gandhi was? Guy wore a blanket, really skinny guy with a big glass. Yeah, okay, so non-violent dude. So what he was basically he was a leader of non-violence against a sort of a resistance movement against the British rule. So what people don't know about him, and this is what happens when you don't have a divine religion with a moral code that comes just from God. When you're just basing it off your ideas, your thought process, you're bound to fail. The moral, and he claims, and what people don't know is some people call him a closet racist, but he was a racist. He discriminated against blacks. He didn't want them to be in the same places in the hospital, and he said that the whites and the Indians are higher than the Africans. He actually also didn't say some. What his advice was to the Jews in the Holocaust? He said the Jews should offer themselves to the butcher's knife and die like heroes. So basically, he's saying commit suicide. So that was his great, piece of advice for that. So no, thank you, Gandhi. What also is Gandhi, to say in the nicest terms, was a shtickle, a little bit of a pervert. He did some sort of immoral act when he was younger, and then when he felt so bad about it, he's like, that's it. New thing, there's like celibacy. There's like no more with anything. And he committed never to have any association with women and relations, and so on and so forth. And he actually put out that every Indian, every Indian should not marry. I mean, you want to kill out your religion or whatever. You think it's fine. Every religion. If you have to get married, then then if you're with your husband and wife should stay away as far as sleep in separate rooms. Is what he's saying. Might be good for Shalom Bayit. I don't know, but he's saying keep as far away as possible as you can for each other. And he wanted to test himself. So to say it in the nicest way possible, he took his grandnieces and put them in very, very uncomfortable positions to test himself to show that he doesn't have any more temptations for that. So obviously this is, when you're dealing with morality, that you're basing it off, rats or monkeys or cows or whatever gods with like 4 arms. If you're dealing with that, that's obviously something that you're going to be bound for failure, bound for, and look at that. This is somebody who is considered so great in their eyes. How could you consider that morality? How can you consider that moralism? So, okay, there's another. We don't have the time now, so I really want to get. There's another knockoff of. It's a branch of Hinduism. I can't even say the name. People, if I say the name, you guys will know. But the name is based off an avodah zarah. So I'll give you the initials. ISKCON. This was founded in 1966 in New York City. Similar idea with Hinduism, a few changes, claiming to be one God, but it's all based off the Hindu religion, and just like we knocked off that, it's very easy to knock off this one as well. Let's speak about Sikhism. So Sikhism is a very, very interesting... By the way, if anybody knows Sikhism, those are the guys who have the turbans and the long beards. They have swords on there. You know guys what I'm talking about? Like, people are like, are you Muslim? Are you Indian? Like, what's going on? What?
Taxi drivers.
Yeah, some of them, yeah.
Why do they have knives on them?
It's part of their. It's called a ceremonial dagger. It's a ceremonial dagger. Okay, so let's speak about that. So they are ranging between. This is also in India region. There are between 20 and 30 million, of them, and they actually went through, unfortunately, a very hard time after September 11th. There was a lot of hate crime against them in America because people thought of them as Muslim, and they're not technically Muslim, but ish a little bit, which we'll soon see. So, first thing question: how did it start? It started by the guy by the name of Guru Nanak. He was born in 1469 in the Punjab area in India. It was on the border between India and Pakistan. So he was on one hand, he was born to a Hindu family, but at the same point in time, he had a lot of Islamic influence in there. And so it's very interesting when you look at this religion. They were shopping, so they took some stuff from Islam, they took some stuff from Hinduism, and the new religion. There's only true religion, there's only real religion, but whatever. The same idea. So that's also number one red flag. When you're starting to combine religions, that means that you don't have something real. You're just picking things from other religion. So how did it start? He was 28 years old, and he disappeared for 3 days. And I guess his wife was like, where were you? Where were you? Like, I was speaking to God. So he says, listen, I meditated, and I spoke to God, and God told me, no more Hinduism, no more Muslims. And that became a famous saying from his, no more Hindu, no more Muslim. So they claim a monotheistic religion. And they actually claim it pretty good until you delve a little bit into it. It's like, like you were good, and then, you went way off. So in the Hindu idea, they believe that the concept of the circle of life, rebirth and death. The main focus in this religion is also to get out of that cycle. What's very interesting is that they have men and women are equal in this religion, which is very nice. They also don't believe in alcohol or smoking. They also don't believe in angels or demons. They also don't have any divine. There's no divine reward or punishment, which makes me want to question a few things. But before we get into that, their worship is what is very interesting and very nice about this religion is, even though it's fake, is that they very, very strongly push for community service for other people, and so that's well accredited. But then they go, off and certain things that we'll see. They have 5 beliefs. It's called the 5 Ks. And I'm not going to use the Punjab term of it, but the number one is that they have to have long hair. The reason why they have turbans is because they got lots of hair down there. They're not supposed to cut their hair, which is never cut, and that's why they keep it in this turban. Number 2 is they always have to have a comb in the turban. I don't know what it's called, but I remember when I was younger going on the subway, there are certain people from a certain ethnic group, they would have also combs in their hair, Never combing it though, it's just sticking in there. It's always like, something's like, hanging off your hair. So anyways, they also have, maybe that's where they got it from, I don't know. So they have also a comb in their hair, and they have to comb, this is halakha, they have to comb the hair twice a day. The number 3 is short pants. By the way, this already screams a little bit cult-like also. Really, short pants, have a comb. But okay, fine. They also have to have a metal bracelet, and they also have to have a ceremonial dagger. Always have a knife with you. Which obviously, is a problem if they want to fly with TSA. Be like, no, they're my religion, And be like, I don't care. TSA people, very, very strict. They're usually about, 500 pounds overweight, and these are people protecting our countries in a flight. So, checking out their Instagram and Facebook while it'd be like, dark color. Oh. Random security check. I have friends that are from Sephardic origin. They're very dark, and they get pulled over the whole time for a random, college, whatever it is. Keeps the sky safe. Do whatever you need. The way that this religion works is that they have something called gurus. Gurus are their spiritual leaders. There are 10 gurus. The last guru decided no more gurus after him. He's going to be the last one, and he dedicated the book, their sacred book, that is going to be the next guru, and that's called the Guru Granth Sahib, and that became this is like a holy book. Now, they claim very, very strongly monotheism, only one God, no idol worship. Listen how what they do to this book. So this book, first of all, is registered on a throne. It's like if you put it in your house, you can have it in your house, whatever it is. It's in a throne. It's with a decorative cloth. So far, not so bad. Then they have a special fan that you have to wave with it while it's being read. Also, you have to walk on it. When you're nearby, you can't have any shoes. You have to be barefoot. Also taken from that religion, nearby around. Your head always has to be covered. So far, all right, not bad. The last thing is where right turn. You have to bow down before the book. You have to prostrate yourself before the book. And in fact, there are the rituals that they do towards this book is similar to how other people serve other idols. The same idea. So they go, no, this is not, we're just honoring it. I'm like, you're just doing the same thing that Buddha, it's the same idea that we spoke about. You could call it what you want, you're doing, you're worshiping this thing. It reminds me of the situation you see, a little kid has a crayon, and he's coloring on the wall, and he's doing it, this interesting kid, with eye contact on you. He's like direct eye contact as he's scribbling on the wall. And you're like, are you scribbling on the wall? And he's like, no, I am not scribbling on the wall. I'm scribbling on a paper. And you're like, I see the wall. So I'm like, he's like, no, it's a paper. And you say it's a wall. I'm like, you could call it what you want. It's the wall. I'm like, they could call it whatever they want. They're worshiping a book at the end of the day. But let's say even if they're not worshiping a book, let's see what even if they're not. They were asked on it, because monotheism. You think about the first, religion started. It was Judaism, which was Abraham. So it says, why in your book do you not mention anything about Avraham Avinu, Abraham? And they say that very simple, because all the Jews have is all fake and all false. The Semitic scriptures are all false, which is something very interesting because they incorporate based off the Islamic ideas, which basically took it off Christian ideas, which basically took it off Jewish ideas. So they have their religion is very strongly based on Judaism, but in essence, what it really is they're claiming that's completely false. And they also don't accept any other religion, which is very, very misrepresented over there, as being true. They have the only true religion. Adam and Chava, fake. Noah's ark, fake. Which is very interesting because when we're going to get to speak about archaeology, there's actually proof that that it was false. So they all say that it's fake. And they actually claim, Abraham was a human. He made mistakes, which leads me on to the next thing. Their gurus, they don't consider them human. They don't consider them human, which is very, very conflicting and very, very interesting in how they describe it. So in many verses, and I have the verses over here, that the God took form. God is seen as the guru. Within the true guru is really God. Guru is perfect, cannot make any mistake. Very, very God-like qualities, which is very interesting because originally the guru claimed himself as a prophet, not as a God. So the answer to that, guru merged himself together with God. That sounds very Christianity to me so far. Then they say that guru is not God, but one with God. But in the same point, they have verses straight out, and I'll quote, Guru was the Lord incarnate, meaning God in human form. This is in Guru Granth Sahib, page 306. Which means you could call it what you want. You're that little kid coloring on the wall, saying, I'm not coloring on the wall. Well, I see you coloring on the wall. So they go and they basically the gurus, because they procession one after another, as they die, they transfer the God, spirit into the other one. I don't know, they breathe it into whatever. It goes in very, very odd, very interesting thing. What makes it also, they claim all other religions are false, yet in their text, they also include Hindu gods in it. Which is like, why? Why are you including this Hindu gods? And this is in fact where people, this has led to the text being described, and I'm quoting, as fluid boundaries between polytheism and monotheism. There's something going on over here. Then when you look at its history, it also screams a little bit of cultish. When I say cultish, I think you guys understand what I'm saying, right? Sounds very much like somebody's in a power, trying to create their own type of religion, base it off nothing. You know how you used to be able to convert to Sikhism? Is the guru would wash his feet with water. And need I mention, they don't wear shoes often over there, right? So they're washing feet in the water. In order to convert, you got to drink the feet water. And that is the conversion process. Sounds kind of cultish to me. But then the last guru was like, he revamped it, and what he decided was like, this is not going to really sell well. So he said what they did now instead is that they had water, put some sugar in it, make it a little sweet, take the dagger, mix it around, and baptize you, or with some of that water. But you look at their stories; it also sounds very, 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 like what is going on. There was one story brought down that they were, I think it was a guru, a leader, whatever it was. He stands up in front of his people and he starts screaming like a maniac, "I want a head for the guru. I want a head." And everybody was like, you avoid, you're in the class and the teacher's like calling on people and they're like, "I want something," and I was like, I'm using my phone, looking over there, no one's looking. And he's screaming, "I want a head, I want a head." Finally, one shlamazel, one, loser, gets up there and he says, "You can have my head, guru." And he says, "Okay, come with me." They take him to a tent nearby, and you wait a second or two, and then you see blood oozing from under the tent. The guru comes out. He says, "I want another head." And he looks around, and nobody does it. After I keep on one, I want a head. Eventually, somebody went. He went, and then he goes back into the tent. Again, you see blood dripping under the tent, and he does this for 5 times, 5 people. And after I didn't even understand how the story even goes, because they even called his mother. It's like, speak to your son. He's like, I don't know he's killing people over here. Which when you're, I don't know, there's a lot of questions on that. Is a God like bring your mother and be like, "I told you not to do that, take off her slipper and go smack it." I don't know what he's planning on doing. But in any case, after the 5th people, he comes out, all 5 people walk out of the tent. And they all come over there, and he all blesses them, whatever, gives them a higher thing. I'm like, he's like, basically he's trying to see who's the true, devotee to the guru. Again, very nice story at the end, I guess you could say, but very cultish at the same point in time.
What's the level about?
What's the level of them? What they achieve? I don't know.
Where did the blood come from?
They had on the animals there. They were just killing animals. They had daggers. It was very easy. Whatever. So. Problems with this religion. Number 1, personal revelation. One dude in a river, nobody saw him, gone for 3 days, came back, and he claims it. Number 2, incorporating other ideas from Hinduism and Islam while saying they're all false. Number 3, and this I love. This is so great. First of all, there's no prophecy. There's no prophecy in this, which is also something that you want to see a positive proof of it. So they asked him, says, "Why is there no prophecy?" So the guru, and I quote, you rejected the use of miracles and prophecies to win converts. They insisted that the message should speak to himself. Yes, because they were not able to do any miracles or anything, because you're not able to. You're not a divine. You're a regular person. It's those people. Usually it happens to be with men, and usually when they're drunk, and it'd be like, I could fight that person. I could definitely fight that person, but I'm not, because I don't want to hurt that person and I don't want to kill that person. I'm like, no, that person's like 6'5", he benches like 7,000 pounds, and he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And this guy's like, well, I started jiu-jitsu, and I, know Krav Maga since I was a fetus. And, and they're like, but they're like saying things like, those people that talk tough and they don't actually do anything, those are, which is better obviously than doing something, don't get me wrong, I'm not promoting violence, you said you're going to beat him, I'll fight him. But at the same point in time, you have people that are big talkers because they can't do anything. You say, I didn't want to do any miracles, I didn't want to give any prophecies, because you couldn't. You're a regular dude who was sitting there meditating, singing and Unagi and whatever it is that you else he's singing. What's very interesting also is that even though they say, they claim that the guru tells people, don't convert to us. In fact, they say that they never tried to convert people. Be a good Christian, be a good Hindu, be a good Muslim, just be a good person in your own religion. What's very interesting is that you're telling them that, but they're not going to be able to reach heaven or something like that. They're like, you do your thing, but they're not able. They're gonna have the good karma. He says, that will be fine. But to get the ultimately liberating your soul, you're not going to be able to do it with that manner. So this is an obvious question. It says, if this is the only true thing, then why don't you go and try to, go missionary style, go get everybody to go and try to convert it to your religion? It's very, very conflicting. If at one point in time you're saying to be a good Christian, and at the second point in time you're saying all religions are false, then why are you telling them to be a good Christian? If they cannot get to where you get to. See, Judaism is very different. Judaism, we say that you don't have to join our religion to get into heaven. You don't. You keep the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, the 7 Noachide laws, and that's it. And you'll be a good person in your own way. You don't have to join our religion. Almost every single other religion, including this one, if you go a little bit under the peel, also says that in order to get liberated, in order to get to the highest level, you have to follow our religion. So this is very obvious that there's no source of divinity to this. This is a very obvious. This is where it tricks people, and a lot of people, when they're searching for monotheism, they get stuck into this. Was like, okay, this is a monotheistic religion. Seems very nice, very peaceful, and very, very kind, very promoting for others. But when you dig deep down, it's all based on the same idea of Hinduism, of Islam, and it's all based on pure falsehood and nonsense that is completely untrue and definitely not divine. I want to finish off. The last few minutes we have is another religion also in the Hindu area. It's called Jainism. Jainism, what's very interesting, it's one of their symbols is actually a swastika. It was before the Nazis, but they took it because it reaches the four corners of the world and so on and so forth. But they have also a swastika on their religion, so on their sign. The origin for this is very, very interesting because you ask the Jainists, who was the founder. There was no founder. Which is, it's just as bad as picking a you're not gaining anything by that. So they said, how did this religion get started? So they said there's revealed at different times by people known as Tirthankara. These are people that are, they're known as teachers. And there were 24 of these types of teachers. In fact, historians said there's very little to no evidence that these teachers ever existed, except for 2 out of the 24. One of them was Parshvanatha, which existed about 7th century BCE, and this is where they actually claim that the religion actually started from him. Some people say no, it wasn't actually he wasn't the founder. It was the one that came after them, Mahavira. So whichever way you say, it sounds like it was started by somebody, not started by anybody. And this is according to historians. The way that it goes, again, Mahavira, this is like all these religions sort of start the same way. It was like a prince, and he was like, well, enough with this good life and money and good food. He throws everything away and decides to run away from anything materialistic and only work on himself and meditate on his own being. So the ascetic style. So he renounced Mahavira. He renounced at 30 years old. He renounced all worldly pleasures, and he spent the next 12 and a half years to long. By the way, they do a lot of fasting in this religion. They do long fastings and long periods of meditation. And eventually, he came to this enlightenment. Again, how do you know? Because he told you. He'd be like, yeah, I've been fasting. This guy could have been eating garnim or something from a tree, over there. And he's like, oh man, and finally, after the time goes by, I'd be like, okay, 12 and a half years. He comes back and be like, I've been meditating for 12 and a half years and now I have enlightenment. And this is there's no proof. How do we know that you reach enlightenment? Did you get a signature by a divine being maybe? It'd be like your certificate, black belt in enlightenment. So their beliefs is also the same thing. They're also vegetarian. They also believe in the entire cycle, the karma cycle, which you realize is something very interesting when you're dealing with religion. If it's a true religion, then why is everybody in the same area believing the same things? And you have to get out of that cycle in order to get that. They're very interesting because there's actually 2 sects in this religion. One of them actually, they leave so much out of the worldly pleasures that they're not allowed to have any worldly possessions, including clothing. They're not allowed to have clothing, which is very, very interesting, situation. They can't even, if they can beg for food, and they can't even have a cup. They have to beg like this with their hands. They have to leave the world completely, behind them. Then there is, I guess, maybe you want to call it a more modern version, that they're allowed to have a begging bowl. You're allowed to have a staff. And you're allowed to have a whisk for insects. They also had something to prevent insects from going into their mouths. So, also very interesting way of dealing with religion, completely running away from the entire world as it is. And we spoke about it last week also. It's the same idea of Buddhism, running away from the world. Judaism teaches to deal with your problems in the world. All these Eastern religions, not all, many of them teach you run away from the world. Run away, go sit on a tree, go speak to the birds, don't talk for 6 months, don't eat, and, in this particular case, don't have any clothing either. They besides we spoke about that they do fasting. They have something called it's called Santhara. Santhara is where they fast until they die, and then they die. That's it, it's finished. There's no after that. They usually claim it's only when you know your body is not at use anymore for you for reaching spirituality, and then you can go into this thing and you just fast and fast and fast until you die. It is estimated about 200 people die annually across India from this type of fasting. The human rights organizations came over there and be like, you got to stop this, because euthanasia is not allowed over there; it's illegal. Suicide is also not allowed over there. So he says, so euthanasia is banned and suicide is a crime. But at the same point in time, they're allowing to do this. So they're fighting very actively, the human rights organizations, to stop people from fasting to death. They claim it's not out of anger or whatever they claim. But it's something very, very interesting that God wants you to fast until you die, and that reaches like your ultimate. And people it's like you're like a high level, like they celebrate it. They're like, yeah, he made it, didn't he fast for a long, long time. What's very interesting, last religion was women and men have equal rights. This religion, women cannot achieve liberation unless they first born as a man. And they're not good. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, you messed up. You came as a woman. In fact, womanly are intrinsically harmful. So good luck with the women in that religion. The question is about God. So what do they have as God? This is very interesting because they don't really believe in a God per se, which if you have a religion, you it's kind of an important aspect of religion, technically speaking. What they believe is that these souls that get like in the cycle, they're getting out of the cycle again. Same idea, and throughout the entire reach the moksha. So when they get out of that, they become like gods. But they don't become like gods that they have the power to create or destroy. They become like gods in this afterworld, and they become godlike. So. That being said, Buddhism and Jainism is more associated as being, atheistic religions. Atheistic, they don't really believe. And in fact, they say, even though they do believe in some sort of forms of gods or something like that, but they say that these gods will not help human beings. You cannot ask them, you cannot pray to them, they're not going to do anything for you. Furthermore, they do not believe that the universe was created by God. They believe that the universe always existed, which has a problem scientifically, obviously, because there's the Big Bang, and the Big Bang shows that there was a creation, so I don't know how they answer that, but they're obviously contrary to that as well. They say that there's no God to maintain the universe, there's no God of judgment, there's no God of ruler. They do not believe in a divine being who is worthy of devotion. So that's why they believe in sort of God, but they don't believe in God. So it's very, very hard to classify them. Are they atheistic? Are they not atheistic? Not that it matters. But they write that generally these people, that they reach this high level of, spirituality and getting out of that cycle, they become like gods. So what's their worship then? What is their worship if they don't have any gods? So what are you worshiping in that? So they worship these people, these 24 teachers that they had, but they're not really worshiping them. This is where that you get that kid in the crayon right back at it. They're like, we're not really worshiping them. We're worshiping the ways that they got to that act, and we're just trying to remind us to get into the level that they were able to get into. Which, all right, call it what you want, but it sounds very. But even regardless, either way, it's bad. Whether you worship them, so you're saying you worship them, or you don't worship anybody. So then there's no God. So the question is how did you know about this religion? There's no God. And the answer is, well, they reached this like spiritual state, and then they figured it all out. And then they decided they're going to teach everybody what they figured it all out. So I'm like, I don't believe you. I don't know. No, I don't think you figured it all out. Like, where's the proof to that? I'd be like, I meditated and I got to a certain place. Then now I am outside. I know for a fact, and I know that. How? How do you prove that? And in fact, they have very conflicting stories. The first, it doesn't even sound real. They didn't even make it sound real. The first of their teachers, of the 24, the name was Harish Habanahanatha, something along those lines. And what happened was, this was a great warrior, and he taught nonviolence. Also conflicting in itself. The really great warrior taught nonviolence. He started to pursue asceticism, and why did he start, which means is removing himself from the physical world. Now, how did he start doing that? He said that because a Hindu god, what? He said, a Hindu god came to him, actually sent a dancer to him to awaken him from his state of denial. I'm like, I have a question. I have a lot of questions, but I thought there's no gods. So how does this Hindu god come and tell you what it is? But it gets even better. So he took his possessions and he gave it to 100 of his sons, and he spent the next 1,000 years striving for a state of knowing everything. And then when he achieved it, he started, this religion. Okay. Yeah, whatever you say, buddy. I'll have whatever shrooms you're having. again, they don't claim any gods. They're claiming gods from Hinduism. There's a lot of conflicting ideas right over here. There's no God, and why are you serving it? How did you get this information from? It just spells, and there is zero proof for this to be any sort of divine religion. It's very interesting when you go and you look at all these religions, one by one, you could very, very easily knock them off. And I could have very easily, just very simply, just said almost any religion doesn't have a divine proof. It doesn't have a divine proof. But yet you still have people that say, well, maybe this religion is right. Maybe this religion is right. When you learn very, very briefly about these things, you see how fake it is. It's all so fake that there's not... I'm not intending to bash them for being people that are following a fake religion. I'm like, if you just open your eyes for a second, I really did. I really tried to go into this with an open thing. I'm like, okay, let's see. Maybe they were able to get it like that. And by far, I think the one that I would give probably the most credit that they were able to pull it off pretty hard probably was Sikhism. Sikhism, one monotheism. I mean, they go off very, very far. But most religions, very easy to refute. Very, very simple. Which means is that, and by the way, I very, very much dislike giving these type of classes. I do not like speaking about other religions. I can speak enough about Judaism. There's so much to speak about. What do I need to speak about Hinduism, Buddhism, and all this nonsense? But where this does come into effect, and where this does come into a very, very important, I think, facet, is the understanding how great our religion really is. How is it that you don't have people that can convince our religion wrong? When we can convince everybody else, then when we're going to go and we're going to be starting to speak about Jewish religion, about how Judaism started, about how the proofs that we have, it takes all other religions and knocks it right out of the ballpark. It doesn't even come close. Which means is it makes you have like, there's always people that will be like, I get this all the time, and people like whisper to me like, sometimes I question God. I'd be like, okay, so then you learn about it and you find that that's fine. People have these, these thoughts that come into their mind. You have to deal with them. You ask. This is what you're supposed to ask. People go and they say, how do I know the Jewish religion is real? Answer is, it's so obvious. It's so obvious. When you look at these nonsense of what people follow, literally shtuyot shebeshtuyot. You don't, like, before I started learning about these things, I'm like, okay, they must have some sort, like, you want to be a good salesman, you got to sell a good product. I'm like, rats, really? Worshiping, people that became this, like how is this, and it really bothers me, like, to understand this, like, how is it that people so oblivious to reality, so oblivious to some obvious truth? You have to think, and the question is usually asked, are these people going to be held reliable after 120? And it's I can't answer that, only God can answer, but it's a very interesting question, because at the same point in time, you could classify maybe some of them as Tinnik Shanishba, in the same category, maybe they grew up in that religion. But everybody needs to stop for a second and question and say, think about it. Where am I and what am I doing? And when you're doing that, when you do it openly, and when I deal with let's say, secular people who, let's say, have a very strong hatred to religion, first of all, I start off, I'm like, 99%, you got the wrong religion. You don't know anything about Judaism. Oh, they got this background, this thing, and this rabbi cheated them, this or that. I'm like, just because you had a taste of Judaism doesn't mean you had the true taste. And many people don't have the true understanding of Yiddishkeit, the true understanding of Judaism. And they fake over here, and they fake over here, and they think they have the true Judaism. When you try Judaism for the real, you see something very, very different about it. Not only you feel it, it's very obvious over here. Feeling it is also nice, but anybody could say, Hinduism, Buddhism, they could all say, you work with us, and you're going to feel better. And granted, of course, you're sitting in a tree, you're not dealing with stresses in life, and you're not doing that. Of course, you're going to feel better. But when you're going and when you're thinking about Judaism makes sense not only in your heart but also in your brain. It makes sense. Everything is very, very obvious. As we go through this, it becomes all that more obvious. Any questions? Not all at once, please. One at a time.
If we keep saying like their goal is to, get out of their cycle of reincarnation, but don't we have that also, like we want to get out of our cycle of reincarnation just to achieve Ganeda?
We do. And I'm not saying that it's a wrong concept of what they have, but when they're claiming that, what is very interesting is that all of them claim the same idea, that all other religions are fake and false. Hinduism sort of not. Hinduism is like, go do whatever you want, worship here, worship there. It's not really that. But when you're claiming everything else is false, and yet you're taking things from them, then it makes, then what, is this true about it? Then why was that true? How did they get the truth from it and not that? The other idea is that even though we do believe in that, the goal in life is not to, technically it is to not have to be reincarnated again, not to come back in a Gilgal again, but the focus is doing what you need to do. Which means is that you have to make sure that you follow a certain set of path. their ideas in many of religions, there's no heaven, there's no Gehenna, there's nothing like that. It's just in the cycles. And what happens is if you don't get good enough, then you get into animals, whatever, and so on and so forth. We believe that this is one of the paths that you go get to fixing whatever your previous was. Is it could be either Gilgal, it could be Gehenna, it could be Gan Eden, it could be Kafakela, it could be different variations of it. So even though there's the same idea, same concepts, which you'll find across all religions, they worship. Well, we also worship. Okay, fine. The same concept, but the idea and the fundamental behind it is very, very different.
Also for the thing.
Yeah.
If someone's like saying as a joke to someone else, like, "Oh yeah, okay, breathe," so the person like as a joke goes like,
Yeah, I don't know. It's not really the problem. Problems when you do it with meditating and when you're doing it all those type of things. You should stay away from it. Meditate with the Jewish words or whatever it is, based on visual, depending on how you meditate, depending on what it is. I don't know. Most people don't meditate, anyways. Yeah, which they should.
Are you allowed to say like
That's what we spoke about. You should not, because that stems from Hindu, Avodah Zarah. Yeah.
mindfulness, is that okay?
Define mindfulness.
It's breathing exercises.
You could do breathing exercises. Yeah, in and out.
Sometimes there's like a thing to like help you focus on like certain things. Like
that meditating. So meditation.
Certain intention, like think about like acceptance or like that.
So there you have to. Then it depends on which one it is, depending on what you're accepting or accepting what.
It's like acceptance or thankfulness or self-love or.
These are all bumper stickers. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, that's not. But you just do have to be aware in it. But yeah, the breathing in meditation is a very, very. You know why people breathe when they meditate? The reason is the purpose of meditation is. Did we speak about this last week? I don't think we did. The purpose of it is to push everything out. Now, when you start and you want to think about nothing, what's going to happen? You're going to think about everything. You're like, okay, think about nothing now. You have, like everything comes in. So what they do is when you're thinking about breathing in and out, you're concentrating on one thing and you're not focusing on anything else. Any other questions? No other questions? On camera, no other questions? Okay, Hazakabo.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.